Welcome to the MMHP in the 989, channeling all styles and eras of Michigan music history. Recorded live inside the Rock Legends Hall of Fame in Bay City, Michigan. Featuring Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and your host, Scott Baker.
Okay, welcome everybody. We're coming to you again from the Michigan Rock and Roll Legends studio at the Historical Museum of Bay County. And our special guest tonight is Gil Clark.
Ooh.
Gil, welcome.
Troubadour legend.
Thank you for having me here.
All right. Well, you know, we always kind of like to start out, just in case there are some people in Michigan who don't know who you are. You know, where you came from, where did you grow up? And, you know, let's start at the start.
I came from Flint, man, and my first concert was Stevie Wonder at the IMA.
Wow.
As a little teeny tiny, I think 4, probably not yet 5. Stevie's about 10 years older than me, almost exactly. And my mom was a hot dog lady at the IMA. And she got all her girlfriends actually concession jobs. But, you know, now what do I actually remember? Well, I remember it was, you know, this young blind kid, and he moved around and he played drums. And
yeah. So this would have been right around the time that he had the big hit with Fingertips.
Yep, right.
So yeah, you saw him right at the very beginning.
So I got to go to show. So even though I'm a hair younger, like we were walking around and looking at the, you know, the guys that were actually a little before me. I went to things so young because I had a really good looking cousin. I always wondered how I wound up backstage at Ted Nugent. And years later, I figured out, oh, now I know by what. I went to a place called the Sherwood Forest.
Oh yeah,
Is that a David where they were trying to recreate Woodstock all the time?
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting place. So
it was all, you know.
Were you close to Davison then?
Well, my grandparents had moved out to Davison
Okay.
when they left Flint, like in the late '60s. So my cousins who were supposed to be babysitting me would take me out to Sherwood Forest. And,
wow, you're a lucky guy.
Yeah. Well, you know, in those days, I was raised on Beatle records. So I didn't get the live bug. Like, I thought they were a bunch of noisemakers for a long time. And then one day, like, I was still on a Stingray bike, and I heard sound outside, you know, on the PA. So I was probably maybe 11 or something. And it was like, oh, and I've been addicted to that ever since. When I finally heard it. But, you know, when I first heard Grand Funk and, you know, Seeger System and all these kind of guys, Nugent, although I told my friends for years, I was so young when I first saw Nugent and the Amboy Dukes that it sounded like an elephant to me. And also twin reverb, super twins look like monstrous to me, amplifiers.
Yeah.
I still have a love of big amps, but those aren't that big, but in my mind, they were huge. We were at a show years later, and I had told these guys about Ted's sound, and he had went back to the Birdland.
The Birdland, yeah.
And we were standing on the hill talking, and I heard the sound. I turned around, I go, there it is. That's what I've told you guys about for all those years, man. Goes, woo, you know.
When he quit playing the Paul Reed Smith and went back to the Birdland guitars that had that old sound, it came right back. It came right back.
And it was right there still. Like, oh, man. You know?
Yeah, I like the Amboy Dukes a lot. I still think that's his best band. You know, they really did some really ahead of their time kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What inspired you to pick up an instrument? I'm assuming it was the guitar first.
Yeah, guitar first. I mean, I was trying. We didn't have any money. My parents bought me one of them wind-up Mickey Mouse, you know, plastic ones, and then J.C. Penney ones you couldn't even play. And so I didn't get, although the relatives had some things, you know, old harmony that, you know, I could make a little noise on, but I didn't have anything really good that I could play until I was about 12 when I got a Yamaha, you know. And so, but I was trying, you know. And then, of course, my first bass was a Fender Mustang. I think it was the first year. Wish I would have kept that one. All musicians says, wish I would have kept that one. You know? But
so did you form a band like in high school or junior high?
Before. So I had my first band where I've always had this split personality. I had my first band with 2 guys who are still alive, and one doesn't play too much anymore because he makes money as a real estate guy. But the other guy, who's a Briggs of Briggs stadium fame, Harvey Briggs. He plays in a band in Wisconsin called the Baldones, but if you look at it, it means the bald ones. But I had a, fronting that with an acoustic, doing, Neil Young and the Beatles and stuff, and then I also started playing bass in bands, and my first one was probably 13, and both those guys were like 10 years older than me.
Oh wow!
And so I started my sort of split personality real young.
That was in the early 80s?
No, that's early 70s.
Early 70s.
Yeah, 73, 74.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep, Terry and Denny, they're both dead and gone, But the reason was, just like you hear this with so many guys say this story, that you didn't need another guitar. But Terry Moss was just a phenomenal guitar player up north. Grew up with Cub Koda, who later in my life I had another Cub connection when I started playing with Katon, because Cub was a big supporter, and
yeah, they were pretty good friends.
Cub really helped Mike a lot, and was very cool. And he's from Michigan, right? He was wasn't he from the UP? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he grew up.
He was on our label.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. What's the small little town?
Ishpeming or something? Or?
No, it's between Ann Arbor and Jackson.
Yeah, and his dad was the editor of the
Irish Hills.
paper.
Okay.
Was it Irish Hills? I don't know. That doesn't ring a bell.
Sure.
Cub was a house rocker, man.
Yeah.
If I'll never forget walking into it, because I knew some guys who played with him and stuff, but I never forget walking into like a Holiday Inn, and he's in there playing, and he's tearing it up like, you know what I mean, like Jerry Lee Lewis or something crazy. It was like, oh my God, man, this guy's playing at a Holiday Inn.
I used to love his columns in Goldmine.
Yeah.
The Vinyl Junkie. Oh my God, they were so good. Yeah, it just turned me on to a lot of really obscure artists that I hadn't heard before.
Yeah.
Yeah, very talented guy.
We were in competition for a while to do different liner notes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did one of the Lightning Slim albums, and then the company, they knew I was his manager, so they said, you do it. You're a writer. So then I got to do it.
Oh, cool.
That is very cool.
Now, did you get to spend some time with him, Koda?
Not a ton. I mean, I crossed paths with him like over the years. He shared, so we'll jump ahead to Rob Tyner. The guys from The Point that Cub used were Muggsy, The Weapons, Rob's backup band. So, I hung out with Pete a little bit, the bass player, the most, but Joey. And then the weird, full circle thing was when young Joe. So if you fast forward, we're all over the clock here, but fast forward to the early 2000s, I was running Day Jams Camp, which has evolved into School Rock. And it evolved into School Rock because of Joey Gatis Jr., really, because at the camp, the movie came to us. They wanted, they were doing this movie thing. We're going to have a black girl drummer and an Asian keyboard player, whatever, Well, when they saw Young Joe came in at 8. He would stand like Lemmy. He would sing like Lemmy, but he played like Angus. And it was like, when they saw him, they're like, we're recasting the movie. And they put Joe in there.
Oh.
And, yeah.
So did you get any screen time at all in the School of Rock?
No.
Oh, okay. Because that's a pretty great movie.
Yeah.
I always said that Jack Black stole my shtick, though. So it's funny. I have a client nowadays who's still running the School of Rock. It's a franchise now. At the time, it was Day Jams, and it was owned by Warner Brothers, Alfred, whatever, the whole thing. So it was fun. It was fun to work because everything was growing and happening, and it was woohoo. It's great to work for a company and we'd have all these musicians from around the country. We were going out to Connecticut and.
You're
Were
busy.
the albums the same company?
No, they were just running. That was just one division of the of.
Because we leased Ezra Mohawk song to the School of Rock.
Oh, cool! The movie, yeah, that's cool.
So where were you living when you had them bands together at the time? I missed.
Well, first I was up north. I was Petoskey.
Yep.
Because I was in Petoskey from kindergarten to high school.
Okay. Yep.
Yep. Right. Yeah. And then I went to Detroit right out of high school.
And that's when you started running.
As soon as I got out of jail.
Yeah, right.
High school, jail in Detroit. And then I ran into Rob Tyner like first day, and it was all
over. It was it.
So, what year did you become friends with Tyner?
it was like 79. So
Okay, so this would have been after the MC5, basically.
Yeah.
And have you read the book that came out last year, the oral biography of the MC5?
No, I haven't read that one yet.
Whoa, that is something else, especially if you knew Rob Tyner, because it's his interviews that are really front and center. Apparently, Ben Edmonds, who was, one of the editors at Cream Magazine, wanted to do this book on the MC5, and he actually moved in with Rob and Becky Tyner and just got these fantastic interviews
I
with
remember
Rob.
that stuff, yes.
Oh, it's well worth reading.
I'll tell you
it's
another-
the best story of the MC5 ever.
Another thing, some of my stories, I'm the last man standing. So when me and Rob went to New York City in like 80, we stayed with Lester Bangs. And I got to listen to, usually laying on the couch hungover, Rob do that whole thing with Lester. And Lester had just been on a thing around the country, writing a book called Rockamora, which evidently the manuscript's missing. I don't know. You know, the number one music critic in the country, what's his name? Jim Galopoulos, what's his name?
The guy that wrote the book with you in it?
Yeah. Yeah, but all
I
it
have
says
that
to me
now.
is I'm high, you know.
Yeah.
But so I kept getting these calls in the 90s, but I was in Europe a lot, and that he wanted to interview me. And, I didn't know why. And Becky was telling me, and he was trying to find that manuscript.
Mm-hmm.
And so people had heard me tell stories. Me and Robert, some of the only guys who ever read it. It was amazing. It was all horrible stories about people, mostly.
No shit.
But like Van Morrison,
Well, a lot of the stuff that he wrote for Cream was, wow. I mean, definitely were not puff pieces at all.
Oh, man.
He's famous for that series on Lou Reed. I mean, God.
Being a naive kid, when I went into Lester's apartment, he had steel shelves and all these records. That thing that should have been in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as an exhibit. It just was an amazing place. So if you took your corner there and you just threw 45s in the corner till you had a huge pile, and then the sun warped them, because every punk band and stuff had gave him a 45. But he recorded everything on cassette tapes, and in his bedroom was the same thing. It was like an amazing pile. And he sat there and recorded Rob like that, and I listened to the oral history of that version. So by the time Ben did it, Rob was really verbose anyway, man. So it was like he could really lay the smack down.
Yeah, he really gave you the inside view of what life was like in the MC5 back in those days. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's that Jim that he's a writer for the Chicago Tribune, right?
Yeah, what's his name?
Oh, dude.
He's on NPR and stuff.
Yeah, he's still going. And I got that book after you told me about it, and
so I have a beef. I have a beef with that.
I wanted to read that.
In fact, I was in Texas. They were doing this thing on Lester like 20 years ago, let's just say, and they were putting him on the cover of Metro Times, and I was getting these things, and they were beautiful pictures, and it was some, maybe it was a Return to Cream or something, I don't know, but I was reading it, and I called them at Metro Times, and I started telling them stories, and they're like, oh my God, man, and so I wrote a thing. It was me and Rob and Lester. I mean, you have to take my word for it. They're gone. They can't, but that was a really cool, special relationship. And so was Lou Reed, because he might rip you, but then they were friends. And, those days critics like motivated people, and,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very, very famous thing that Lester ripped that album and then went back and said, I was wrong. This is actually real,
Yeah, I got the impression Lou liked that
verbal
verbal interchange,
Yeah. Lou could take it. Man.
Yeah, and dish it out big time.
Yeah.
That's that. I just know that book that came out. He when he was found dead, and you were out on the boat that night.
Well, me and Rob had been staying with him, so we were recording. So we went out there with Bob Babbitt, and from Motown,
Sure.
Cool
Funk
Jerk
Brothers,
and
yeah.
Midnight Train to Georgia and all the great things he did, and which, you know, later I hooked up with Bob again. I went to Nashville and did a record with him in the 90s after that. But so we were out there, and me and Rob had so much fun, man, in the day. You know, we stayed at some hotels, and the band had a hotel. We like snuck in and slept on their floor and stuff, you know, but we stayed with Lester, and but everybody left, and I was the last one there. And Lester's place was above a Chinese restaurant, and like nothing worked. Like, you know, you're supposed to ding in and nothing worked. And, you know, so if you read the book, you know, he talks about the Ramones coming by and throwing rocks at the windows on that day. And, but I left there on Friday morning of, you know, whatever, go look at history, whatever it is. And Jim didn't want to believe like this kid, you know, was, you know, whatever, you know, but I left because Lester had no hot water, man. And I don't know if you've ever like put your head under like ice cold water. Your head feels like it has knots on it. Like you ever done that? Like, right? It's like, oh my God. So I left, and I actually went back that night and stayed at a hotel called the Hotel President, which they remodeled, and now it's really expensive, but it was a rock and roll hotel that Rob had turned me on to. And musicians weren't allowed there after like Jethro Tull in 1972 or something.
Okay.
But I had an acoustic guitar, you know. So.
Now the guy that you're talking about, the writer, is that Jim DeRogatis?
Yeah.
DeRogatis, that's it. Yep.
Okay, what book is this? I'd be real interested.
What's
in
that thing
reading
called?
this.
Is it Carburetor Dung? And
Nope.
No, it's Let It
not warp.
Blurt.
Blurt. Let it blurt.
Now this is by
Jim DeRogatis.
It's about Lester.
DeRogatis.
It's
Okay.
about Lester.
Yeah.
But it's about Lester. Okay.
It's a book about Lester. So
Yeah.
I don't know how in the hell that manuscript wound up missing. When me and Rob encountered Lester on the street in New York City, he had it. You know, he used to put a manuscript on the, you know, the paper, you know, in the box, like that, right? When you wrote a book, and it had been submitted to Bantam. It was, you know. So that's why he had it in his mind, because I had talked about it and told different people in rock and roll circles about it, and he thought that I had it. Actually, he thought, well, the little kid stole it, you know what I mean?
I know that was his whole premise, was he thought that he hinted at that you were the one that took off with it because you were
the missing manuscript.
Yeah.
But what was so cool was Rob would sit there with him, and he'd like say someone. Lester goes, just name anybody, and Rob go, Elvis, and he go, and then he'd read a story about Elvis, which the Elvis story was a great one. But it was, you know, this went on and on. So, you know, I think both me and Rob made it all the way through the book by the time we had left. You know, it's great. Wow. Yeah, so it's a shame it never got published.
Someone's got it somewhere. Or
what Lester did was, for like 2 years, he had a Greyhound bus pass, and he went around. He was real good friends with Billy in Texas, Gibbons. Yeah. And he went all around the country for a couple of years, and he would tape, nutty with that cassette deck thing. He just had piles of. I don't know what ever happened to any of it.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll turn up one
the rock
day.
and roll memorabilia in that apartment. It was unbelievable. Just his refrigerator that was broken in the hallway that had like, you know, Springsteen, backstage pass, all stuck on this, you know, all the Lou Reed stuff. That's what I was going to say, being so naive. I walk in all these records, and what do? I grab Walking the Wild Side, Best of Lou Reed. I don't know this history at the time. I'm 21 years old or whatever, you know? Yeah. So, and Lester, like, he realizes, oh, this kid's just naive. That's actually what he likes. It was true. And Rob said, he likes you, man. He don't like nobody.
I love that. I remember you telling me that story.
He don't like nobody. Yeah,
man. I'm the only guy he liked.
But he let me play his guitar, and he had like a PV amp, and you know, he was doing some recording at the end of his life. Yeah, he did some stuff.
And that never turned up.
I think there's a couple things that came out. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to know any of the other members of the MC5? Fred Smith,
yeah. So Dennis, I had on again and off again. You know, I actually I couldn't really say I talked to Dennis like 2 days before he died.
Oh,
so
okay.
He wasn't really, and I didn't want to go around and tell people like he's a goner, man. But I knew he was. My brother is a very interesting character. Hung out with Dennis a lot. I have some stories that shouldn't even be ever told. like, you know, those characters. But the Machine Gun was what it was an amazing drummer, though, man. If anything else anybody wants to say, when they got back together with the MC50 or whatever the heck it was, if you listen to those tapes, he fills it up. It's like Johnny B. When you put Johnny B on a record, the whole record is full. You know, I mean, those are just, and he really worked on that Elvin Bishop style stuff. And, you know, my friend who's up here, Patty, told me he came down to my studio and I don't even remember this, but he said he sat down behind the drums and I said, last person to sit there was Machine Gun. So, but mostly he didn't want to ever really play with anybody other than the MC5 guys. Although,
I think he played on a.
Yeah, with the Dodge Main. I was going to say, but Wayne was in there. Yeah. You remember, and that just came up on Facebook and
just the other day.
Yeah, and I commented and Sean jumped in because we had videoed them.
Yeah,
because I don't know if I was hanging around Dennis then, but you know, and I bantered with Gary, you know, on and off too a lot. And Gary's
that's
a great
how I
guy.
met Gary through you guys. Yeah,
Gary's a great guy.
I think Dennis played on a couple songs when Wayne Kramer put out that that latest MC5 thing. So that's probably why he didn't play more. He maybe
seems
wasn't
like
in
he
good
may
health.
have also been on something with Dennis Tech at some point.
Yeah, he Birdman stuff. So after the 5, he went out. It was called New Order, and it was not that New Order. It was Gary from the Stooges.
That was Ron Asheton, right?
Ron was there. Dennis was there. Dave Gilbert, and Dennis's story is about Dave Gilbert. Just really funny. But you know, they had a big, and Scott Thurston, who wound up being Duckhead from, you know, Tom Petty's band forever. Yep. And whenever they came, I would usually try to talk to him a little bit about. He loved Michigan rock, so. But because Duckhead went from Iggy, and he was with Jackson Browne all those years, but then Tom's for, you know, from '94 on or whatever.
He played cleanup in Roy Orbison.
Oh man, he could do
that Roy Orbison like nobody.
Duckhead's so talented, man. Yeah. I want to tell you something. If you ever see that great footage of Tom and Jeff Lynne at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Prince, look over who's playing bass.
Yep.
Like, no, Duckhead, get on bass, man.
Yeah, just amazing.
Talented guy.
How about Fred Smith? Did you ever meet Fred?
Just you know, only him, like not long, you know. And,
that's kind of the only downer on the MC5 oral history.
No, Fred.
Is that they didn't have anything from Fred. He just didn't want to talk to anybody about it, you know.
Yeah, you know, when Rob died and Fred came back, and Fred wasn't long for the world. I think I was one of the only people that knew what Fred was saying or talking about, because he told stories that about Rob that I knew from Rob, and I was sitting there just like it was great. But one of my, who was another one of my, in Run Rob's really, really good friends, Jeffrey Vale, who is really, you know, really unsung. He's the guy that put together, though, later the Knights of the Grandee. And eventually he got to Masonic with Mitch Ryder, but he really, his big goals were, he wanted the guys in the gang who became Nugent's band. That was his block gang, to get them back together. But he got Dick. We had those good times with Dick down there, and but anyway, Jeffrey.
So what was he? Was he like a
drummer? Great drummer.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, I asked Jeffrey how he got so great, and he told me Ron Cook, who's another unsung hero of Detroit rock, who's with, I think, in the Detroit band. Huh. But he said he just was a drill sergeant with him. You're speeding up, you're slowing down. But now I forgot what I was going to do. Well, so here's why I brought up Jeffrey. Rob stole Jeffrey from Fred. Fred said, you got to see this drummer I got. So this was the beginning of the Sonic Rendezvous Band, which I never see this history correct, because Ron and Jeff were the first rhythm section before it became Rock Action and Gary. Mm-hmm. And the poor keyboard player from Clarkston, that's all anybody knows. And that keyboard player from Clarkston, no one knows his name. But so that's when Rob got Jeff. So Rob,
the original.
And that was the band I first came down.
So were
with.
there hard feelings between Fred and Rob?
He was like, he went and got Rock Action. What the hell, man?
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I always thought, boy, there's Sonic's Rendezvous.
Yeah.
How did that band not make it?
know,
You know, I
man.
mean, geez.
I know. Like, was just
Such
the timing.
an array of talent.
Everything was weird timing with that.
You know,
Yeah.
I bought one of their albums. I think it's on Third Man Records.
Yeah, there's some
Is there one on
reissue
it?
stuff out
Yeah.
there
And
now.
I've had it for sale for about a year.
City slang.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I don't. People don't know about them.
The flip
you
side
know,
of
I mean,
city slang, I
I
wanna
think people
cover.
in Michigan know
Okay.
about Sonic's Rendezvous, but
Some.
outside of Michigan,
You know,
they're
it was
basically
a
unknown.
tragedy. Jeffrey, they rehearsed at Jeffrey's, and someone stole someone broke in there and stole. He had tons and tons of tapes, but later in his life, before he died, he still had recordings of the original band from at the Chance, where they always play it or whatever they called it in those days, and he listened to them all the time.
Yeah, Patty, I think Patty Smith released some of that stuff.
Some of it,
anyway.
yeah.
We got a interview that's coming out like next for us on our series with Scott Morgan. It's gonna be a 2 or 3 part series, and we spent quite a huge afternoon with him.
That is awesome,
Well, that
man.
seems
And-
like a long time ago.
Yeah,
I
that's
know
our
it.
next thing.
And Scott is like the last man standing, right?
I
I
know
know a
it.
lot of guys. So,
Yeah.
you know, Scott, so Scott could do Rob to a T. I mean, he could just, you know, he could really like a guy who learned Sinatra or something. He knew all the nuances of his voice, and we had our ups and downs over the years. But man, he's so great, you know. And I've saw so many of those in you know, like Mike and Gary were playing with him, whatever they called that version of the band. I can't even remember anymore. Well, even way back to when we were doing the community
Like the
concert
Scott's
series.
Pirates thing you talking about?
Yeah, it was the
Well,
Pirates.
we
and it was-
released 2 of those albums.
Yeah.
Those Pirates.
yeah,
Yeah, I've got one of them.
yeah.
You know,
Which is basically Sonic's Rendezvous band minus Fred Smith and
Yeah.
Kathy Duchesne.
And Kathy,
is on there.
I loved Kathy, and I don't think I ever saw her again after she went out west. But
Oh, that's where she went?
yeah, she got married to a guy, and they
I
did a
never
lot of
saw her again
windsurfing.
after.
Yeah, they went to the gorge to windsurf.
Wow.
She used to. Scott's big, huge drumsticks drove her crazy. You know, they tried to change him out to little 5Bs or something. You know?
Nice.
She was cool, man. She could. Oh man, she was a great backup singer.
So how did you initially meet Tyner? I mean, how did that
The old Miami.
at the old Miami,
How
Detroit?
much more legendary does anything get than the old Miami?
That's the start of it. I mean,
So-
you and I did our first show together there. My first show at the old Miami. You're many of shows down the right. You were with Mark Gentry at the time and Pat
Oh
Cummings.
yeah, and that was way later than, you know.
Yeah.
It's funny. I just played Saturday night, and I was in Charlotte, and my cousin Dan came over, and he's 75 years old, and he was telling old Miami stories, and I didn't even, you know. I'm like, it's hearsay. I don't know, you know. I just sat and laughed, you know. But when the Rodriguez thing happened, and I saw the old Miami on, you know, NBC TV, I was just like,
Of all places, right? Here it is.
but yeah, and there was a lot of people that would. It was a crazy place. It was cool, you know.
Yeah.
There was good sound though for the day. There was, you know, a lot of things that happened. Rodriguez. So when everybody was looking for Rodriguez, I always knew right where Rodriguez was. I was always like, just why didn't nobody ask me? He walked up and down Cass and went to Wayne State, but with Tyner. So what people didn't know about Tyner was a great auto harp. And Tyner was much better after the MC5. He evolved as a writer, as a singer. He had more range. He had, you know, he wrote a lot more chords. You know, when he was in the MC5, he was really interesting the way he wrote, like Kick Out the Jams. John Lee Hooker taught him da-da-dee-dee, D-A-D-A-D-D, a 2-note power chord. And he had a white flying V, when we love to have that thing today.
Oh.
And he'd just go da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, right? Like, and, but later, you know, he started playing, he had a white auto harp, and he played, you know, minor chords and chord progressions. And so I was always trying to get Rob to come out and play, because I was like a folkie. That was another part of my split personality, you know. And he was like, I can't be seen, you know. But he was like, make these great demos. And what he would do too is he'd write chord changes and he'd record them. I actually have a bunch of Rob's recordings still.
I was waiting for you to see. I'm like,
Yeah.
you said you got the stash.
Yeah, I got
Jim DeRogatis doesn't even know what
I
you got.
know. I need to. I need to hand it over to someone or something, you know.
We're the one archiving. We're doing the archiving, homie.
You know, oh man, I should. Yeah, you're the guys who should get it and go through it. Yeah, there's tapes and. So, but what he would do is he would make a loop and then he would sit and write lyrics to it. Like he'd listen to the chord progressions and that was one of his ways he wrote, you know. So now I forgot what story I was on, but I knew that.
You were trying to get Tyner to come to the old Miami.
I would get him. So my thing was, I wanted Troubadours, Troubadours, and jongleurs or whatever we. And Rob would always educate me. It's not just Troubadours. There's Troubadours and jongleurs, but my third was Rodriguez. I always wanted. So I was hip on Rodriguez day one in the corridor. And the legend in those days, in the late 70s, was that he had these 2 records in Australia that were gold, and it only took $50,000 to be gold in those days, or whatever, 50,000. But he would walk by, and I listened to him, and I loved that stuff. And we couldn't get him to play. You know, he was usually drinking. And people leave that out of the story. I mean, but we couldn't get him to ever, you know, on the thing. So me and Rob played shows with a lot of other people, like a lot of art galleries. You know, we'd plug in Greg Colheed and Alan Z and whoever was the third. But I always wanted it to be Rodriguez. So one night, finally, early 80s, we were across from the Miami. There's this beautiful, I think it's an art school. It's a real big old, like really cool, and there's like church pews, and Rodriguez is on the bill, and he actually showed up, and I can't, you know, I wish I had a tape in my head, but I was so happy, and I went on before him, and I sat right in the front row of the church thing, and he came out. Rodriguez used to play covers. He came out and said, "You got a lot of nerve to say you are my friend." The Dylan song, for Positively Forced, with his beautiful, you know, voice, with his way of, and man, I wish I could remember more, but it was so, you know. But then our paths crossed, you know, over the years too.
Is this after you started recording?
Yeah, I had already done stuff. I was already playing a lot in the community concert series with Rob and that whole gang and that whole, you know, community down there.
So that was, you know, like your early stuff is more like really folk music, right?
Yeah.
Is that a fair
acoustic
description?
Yeah.
And are you're just kind of, some of it's just you and your guitar, right?
I usually used a band mostly, but it'd be, you know, mostly acoustic and vocals, but I always had bass and drums in different bands and usually, you know, wherever I went, and never could keep my own together. I always envied the guys who had one band together and they could go.
What year was that you, Rodriguez, and Tyner did the show together?
That'd still be like early 80s.
Early 80s.
Yeah.
I'd love to see his handbill for that.
Oh man, that was, yeah.
Did you guys end up having a jam at the end?
I don't remember any jam on that one. And there was other bands in that. But it was kind of like the community concert thing. Community concert was really, really cool downtown. We would get bands that would come from like Cobo Hall, and they would turn around. So we had like this coffee house at St. Andrew's Church. And then on the other side, it was like an old cafeteria or something, and you could put loud rock bands going that way. So earlier in the night, it would go a long time. It was really cool.
Wow.
I have some souvenirs of that. You know, there was a Detroit Free Press article. I have a picture. It's me, Rob, Paula.
That's
and Mary Cobra, actually.
Mary Cobra. Okay.
Yes, everybody still loves Mary. And Paula does her Paula Walla, whatever it is, you know. Which I watched the other day because speaking of the poster thing, all these great posters you guys have here. Garrett, how do you say his name? Blahnik. Become one of the best little gunners in Detroit. In fact, he was on the Alice Cooper record. And
we saw him at the MC5 tribute down at the Blind Pig last year.
Yeah,
I invited him on the show. He goes, "Anytime he wants, give me a holler, Scott."
He grew up in the record store, man.
Yeah, see, he knew Sean somehow.
Oh,
we
yeah,
connected. And Sean and him were talking.
Sean's like his babysitter, man.
Okay. I probably knew him from that and didn't even know it.
Yeah, Garrett's great kid, man. Oh man.
Yeah, he tore it up at that, but he's a cool kid, man.
Yeah, he is, man. Isn't he great? But his uncle, and I can't remember, Uncle Bob, I guess we call him. He had a tremendous poster collection. Really great, man. So,
Yeah.
It'd be nice to get you some more, hey?
You know it. Yeah. Well, one of the things I'm going to put up is Carl Lundgren did a series of posters that were like shrunk down to postcard size. And Russ Gibb used them as advertising. You know, he would hand out, they were cheaper to make them small like postcards, and they would be
Steve, you get those from Steve?
No, I have the collection. I bought a book of them.
Really?
So we're going to make them a little larger, you know, so you can really appreciate Lundgren's artwork, which kind of gets lost when they're the size of a postcard.
I got to tell you a story, man, from down there in that area. Even in the late 70s, when you went into those brownstones, those apartment buildings, those posters, you know, the flyers were still on the walls.
Yeah.
They were still in the walls, like in the lobbies, that, you know, just taped up. Think about that now, man. Like, you know, creaming.
Or, you know, you used to see them just plastered on the walls
Telephone poles.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
They
just
were-
like,
they were
God, you
still
wish
up
you
down there,
had
though.
those things.
Weird.
They were still there, man.
In the 80s.
Yeah, in the late 70s, early
Late
80s, they were
70s,
still
yeah.
there, man, all
Oh.
over the place. And, you know, Rob told me that got changed now, but, you know, like where the band house was, the MC5 house is gone. But there was an ice cream parlor down there by Warren and with lodges and that. And Rob would say, you know, you'd go to that ice cream store and there'd be Clapton and Winwood and Townes. And, you know, he's like,
Hanging
you know,
out.
yeah, he was like, it was crazy. Like, but, you know, because of CKLW, you know, that
Yeah.
broke the Who and the Grandy, you know, all those guys were here, you know, and the West Coast guys too.
Yeah.
So when you played the old Miami for the first time, you just befriended Tyner. How did the relationship start?
Oh man, I hate to tell the truth on myself. I'm such a cocky little ass. I go in there and they're playing Rob with the National Rock Group, and I said some shit to him like, "Well, if you guys got a contract, man, I'll come work for you or something." And I was talking to Jeffrey, and Rob. Jeffrey's like sizing me up because Jeffrey would just size you up like, "Who is this kid? Let's like take him out back," you know. And Rob goes, "Give him a job, man." Like, so like right out of the thing, you know. But
I have to ask you, you know, because I was never at the old Miami, and maybe a lot of people listening to it aren't sure what it was. Was this like a nightclub in Detroit? Or
it's a
kind of give
bar.
us the lowdown. What was
It's
that
pretty
like?
much like our CBGBs in Detroit.
Oh, okay.
The Corridor, you know, was like our Bowery, our Mission. It was the worst. But Albans was down there at Wayne State, which was a good club on and off over the years.
Yeah, we played there.
Good stage. And
Miami's still going though.
Miami's still amazingly. And Danny is still going, I understand. So Danny Overstreet, you know, I had a relationship with him. If I told him today I got a new band, I want to play, he'd like, just tell me when and where, you know. And,
Is this Jake the dog?
no, well, that's one of them now. But
Okay.
he'd want it to
I
be
saw
one of
it
my
on your Facebook page.
Yeah. So, but you know, the dog got off the leash a little bit, and I was off the hook. And it was around, we had been downtown, I think, to see Government Mule or something around 2000, and I was reliving a little past glory. I went down there. I had a kid drive me, and I went in, and even then, I sat down and I started telling them stories of the place, and they're like, "My God, we've heard of some of these things, but we've never met anybody who was here."
Oh wow.
But the dog was definitely off the leash then. Anyway. But I told him about Country Joe and there's different shows and stuff, and you know,
That's what I remember you telling me.
yeah.
Country Joe and the Fish.
Whoa.
all the Miami things, man. You know,
You know, I just read today on Facebook that the Romantics, their hit record is 40 years old already.
wow.
40 years?
Yeah,
Well, yeah, they would have been
Man.
mid-70s, right?
yeah.
Or wait a minute.
80, 79,
They would
80.
be older. Oh, yeah, it would be 80s, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were 80s, not 70s. What am I thinking about? Yeah, right.
But 40 years?
Yeah, I know. It's
So Mike,
it's scary. You know, you're seeing all those albums on Facebook,
Right.
you know, released on this day. And I was just like, oh, geez.
Mike gave me guitar lessons at
Mike Gentry.
Skill.
Oh, Mike Skill
Yeah.
from Romantics.
Yeah, when I was a kid. I think it was like Guitar Center, but I think it was Pyramid Guitars or something like 10 in Gratiot. It was big. I don't even know if Guitar Center was yet, but he was teaching there. Yeah, and he'd teach me romantic songs and stuff, you know, Night Like This riffs or whatever. And
Badass, man.
great guy, and I still, you know, will make a comment. He's still a great guy. So.
He was at that MC5 thing we went to last June, a year ago, and he wanted to be on the show, but he lives in Oregon. He said Portland or something.
Yeah.
So when he flies in, I asked him this year, and he hasn't hit me up yet if he's coming when he's coming in.
Yeah. Well, we'll just have to take the corporate jet out there.
Scott, that's one of them road trips.
That's the big budget, that we have for the show.
I got to tell you, because with Rob, I got to go to anything and everything. Every door was open in Detroit. And so the early 80s, and it was Wally, Jimmy, and Mike. And they played at Trax. And we were at Trax with Rob, and Trax had some cool shows.
So you're talking about the Romantics for our listeners.
Yep, but a three-piece, no Kaz, or that fourth guy changed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Mike went over to bass, and Wally was playing guitar, and Jimmy. They played as a three-piece in Trax, and they ripped it up. Oh my God, did they rip it up, man! What a power trio they were.
That never came out, did it?
No, it was just kind of I don't know what it was, a one-off thing, but oh man,
wow,
just ripping.
Fantastic, man. You saw some inside stuff then
with Rob, Yeah.
Best friends though, you said.
That's how, like, when we went to, when you asked about the five guys, like, when Rob wanted to go see Mike again, when Mike was playing in Destroy All Monsters, and I can't remember who else was there in that band then. I think it was Rob King, who I later knew Rob, who was I dated Rob's sister, actually.
Okay.
But, yeah, so we had made a trip out to Ann Arbor and whatever era that was with Niagara and all that, And
so you get to know her.
But you know what? I also had another weird memory of a big party at Mike's down in the corridor, and a lot of it, the days are lost. It was like everybody came out. Man, it was huge.
Mike Skill?
No, Davies.
Oh, Davies.
MC5, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So.
Well, tell us a little bit about, you've got quite a few album releases over the years, right?
Over the years, anytime I write
a
batch of songs, I'd go find some guys to record with, and did my first real one over in Ann Arbor. Rob was on that. Rob came out and played harmonic in a couple of songs with me and stuff on my very first stuff, and then I'd always go somewhere. I wound up going to Nashville with Bob Babbitt because I had met him years ago. I did 3 down in Oklahoma.
What album did you do in Nashville?
It's called Riding On.
Okay.
I had a batch of songs, and I had a pretty good home studio. That's when I first met Mike Gentry.
And me, I think.
I came over and tore apart my studio. But I had been talking to, Nashville's such a hustle. I mean, it's still a different thing. But even in those days, I've been talking to a guy, I can't remember his name anymore, but he was like the grandson of Kitty Wells and Porter Wagner. And they got the museum, and he had a studio out back. But he's a drummer. He's a touring drummer. And I was talking to him, I can't get drum sounds. I'm a drummer, I'll get them. But, they just want to charge all these kids a bunch of demo money and take 12 or 15 grand from you, and you're going to make the big time. But so fortunately, my brother was cruising through and went to see Bob because he'd stayed friends with him. And he was showcasing with a guy, and this guy was keeping him on retainer. And the band was Bob on bass, Bill Kelly, who had played with Queen and Boston and Chicago, but was in a band called Dakota, who I actually saw warm up Queen at Joe Louis Arena, and he loved me for it. Everywhere we'd go, he'd say, come here, come meet Gil. He saw Dakota. He had been in Pure Prairie League with Vince Gill too, Bill. Okay. And then Conway Twitt, his piano player, and a great drummer who would play with the Doobie Brothers, and just this, amazing cast. And they were much more like, they weren't Nashville. I mean, they were from all over the country, right? But to me, they were more Memphis-y or kind of like a heartland rock. I mean, I really saw them like they could much more like Mellencamp's band, or
okay.
or like
And this is Bob Babbitt on
yeah,
bass?
and then Babbitt was the ringmaster.
Yeah, wow.
Bob was an amazingly, really, really cool guy, and I'm sure he should be in here somewhere. Stuff of his is
Well, it's a member of the Funk Brothers, for sure. Yeah,
and,
wow.
And so many things. He was such a great guy too. He was nice to me when I was a kid. When I went to New York with, and the other one who was with him a lot was Dick Wagner.
I saw a picture somewhere. Those two.
Yeah.
Babbitt and Dick.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, they did a bunch of New York stuff together, like
Tim Curry.
Yeah.
That was one of them. It was the late '80s.
Yeah.
They were scraping up the cocaine money.
Well, you know who Dick had when I was there? It was John Lennon's band. John Lennon had just been killed, and Andy Newmark on drums, who played with Lennon and all that stuff. He's in Harrison and was a great guy. It was another guy who's really nice to us. But Dick was really nice. He was always nice to me too. And so he told me to go see a guy named, I'm going to forget his name, Bobby. He was kind of another Bob Seger. Bobby, the Cracker Jack band, Bobby Lewis. He says, hey, you ever, so me not knowing any better, I come back to Detroit. I go see Bobby Lewis. Knock, 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 knock on the dressing room. Hey, Dick Wagner says, Dick, come on in.
You know him? Come on in.
And he had a great band. He was this. I don't know if you know who he was. He should.
Okay, this isn't Bobby Lewis of Tossing and Turning fame, I'm guessing, right?
No,
He was a
Michigan
white guy,
yeah,
right?
white guy.
Okay, yeah.
Because his daughter plays out.
Yeah.
Gia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I went back and saw him because a bass player joined that Cracker Jack band from Rob's band later. And but Dick was really, really nice to me. And we had one of our next big things was when they did the Guitar Army.
Mm-hmm.
And
Scott and Wagner and
Mark Farner killed it, and just so many. Randy California.
Yeah.
It's when I first spent time with Dave Gilbert from the Rockets.
Yeah.
So
was that 85?
Horizontal. So later, after that, I think I was done touring with Katon, and a guy came in the record store. They tell me you're the best bass player around here. I need a bass player. And I'm like, I didn't want to play bass with anybody unless I really loved the drums or something, And then he said, well, it's Dave Gilbert. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll
think about it. Come on in.
Is this after the Rockets?
Yeah, this is like 99. Yeah.
They kind of booted him out of the Rockets, right?
The dog would really get off the leash with Dave.
Yeah, whoa.
But so we were he died in process, but we were playing, and he had went to Mayo. He had tried to get, but he didn't have a liver, man, But he still had that soul. He didn't have all the power, but he still had that. I loved the Rockets. I loved those Seeger shows with the Rockets. Oh my God, man. Jimmy and Johnny still, I mean, it really is the equivalent of Jimmy Page and John Bonham. I mean, as a guitar and drum, I don't know. That's what you're talking about there in my mind.
There's the chemistry there.
Oh my God!
For over the years,
It's still, they both just had their birthdays.
80. Both turned 80. Yeah.
Well, good for them.
So I don't know if Johnny B was 80, but I know
Fred.
that
They're real
McCarty
close.
was.
We take inspiration from guys in their 80s that are still playing.
Jimmy just keeps working, doesn't he? It's awesome.
We're gonna get to see him next month for a podcast.
Oh, cool.
We got to go down to him.
Well, Johnny has the best stories of anybody in rock and roll. Johnny B is the best.
We're trying to line him up too.
Podcast. I saw that on Facebook.
Yeah,
it's probably that Detroit thing, right?
It was in Detroit.
Yeah, that's a little bigger operation than we have, but I don't know. We might get them on.
And that'll put a wrap on part 1 with Gil Clark here at the MMHP in the 99. We hope you enjoyed the story. Gil has one of the greatest rock and roll backstories of Michigan around. not just of being involved with the artist, but also of his own music. And he's got great stories coming up here in part 2 in 2 weeks as well, including some of the people that fanned him and his music, which you will find unbelievable, equally as much as these great stories. So come back here in 2 weeks, catch up with us here in Gil Clark in part 2, and we're glad you tuned into part 1. Come back soon.
On behalf of our hosts, we would like to thank the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame, our guests, and especially our listeners. The MMHP is found on the 989 network, as well as all familiar podcast hubs. Up-to-the-minute information, as well as Dr. J and Sir Fred's Michigan Music Songs of the Week, can be found on the MMHP's Facebook page, /MMHP989. You can connect with Scott at scottbakermusic.com, Dr. J at michiganrockandrolllegends.com, Sir Fred at fredrife.com, and Mr. Mike on YouTube as MRBTEE1.
And on behalf of Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and myself, Scott Baker, we would like to thank Eddie Switek